open your heart and believe that God spoke to me. Dear Mohammed, you're a wonderful man. How do we know God spoke to you? I'm telling you. I myself am openly testifying to the fact that God spoke to me. Dear Mohammed, maybe you're not telling the truth. Or maybe you've had an illusion. Or maybe, why in the world should I believe you because you tell it to me? Do you believe Bush because he tells it to you? There's only one religion. Only one religion. One and no other. In all the history of mankind. One and only one. Where you don't have to believe the prophet that he's a prophet. Where God spoke to the people as a whole and told them, Moshe is my prophet. Moshe doesn't come and say, believe me, God sent me. They'll say to him, crazy? Why would we believe you? They didn't. And you know something funny? This Chumash was written 3,000 years ago. Everybody agreed. 3,000 years ago, everybody knew that miracles occurred. 3,000 years ago, everybody knew if a prophet came and said, I'm a prophet, you believed it, especially if he could perform a trick, or two, or three. The Chumash said, no. No. Miracles are no reason to believe in prophecy. No. Miracles prove nothing. You believe that? The Chumash says, miracles produce and prove nothing. You don't believe because of a miracle. You never know what is a miracle, what isn't a miracle. Miracles are really the way you look at things and what you want to believe. You want me to show you that? Tell me something. Was it a miracle that the Jews survived in 1973? Or was it a miracle? You say, well, no, it wasn't a miracle. It's a very simple thing. What were the probabilities of their surviving? 1 in 50,000. That's a miracle. You don't want to believe a miracle, it's not a miracle. You want to believe a miracle, it's a miracle. Miracles prove nothing, the Chumash says. How are you going to know? The Chumash says, do you know how we Jews are going to know that Moshe is a prophet of God? God, and they will hear as I pronounce you, proclaim you, and only then will the Jews know that Moshe is truly a prophet of God, because they heard God himself tell them that Moshe is truly a prophet and that the words that he utters are the words that are put into his mouth by God himself. That is why we accept the law from Moshe. We don't believe him. We don't say he was such a marvelous man, such a wonderful man, and he performed such tremendous miracles, and he took us out of Egypt, and he set us free. Therefore, we'll believe in him, nothing of the sort. We won't believe a word he says until God told us, not him, but us, this man is my prophet, and the words he utters to you are the words that I put into his mouth, and therefore what he says you should accept. And only then did the Jews accept Moshe as truly being God's prophet. And I want to tell you something. This is the greatest of all the miracles, because all other peoples believe anybody who performs a trick or two. All you have to do is pull off a miracle and you're set for life. But not among the Jews. A uniqueness. But tell me something. It's an obvious advantage to be able to say God himself appeared and said that Muhammad is a prophet. Why don't they tell that story? Why don't they tell the story that God himself appeared and said, Jesus is my son? Why don't they tell that story? Could it be because there's no way to make up such a story? That the telling of the story is bearing witness to its falseness? What do you mean God said it? Who heard it? Everybody heard it. Everybody heard it. My parents never heard it. My neighbors never heard it. How can you say that everybody heard it? Well, they weren't there, but you just said everybody heard it. You can't tell such a story. If you could, don't you believe they would? You don't believe that they would have told this story dozens and dozens and dozens of different times? Why not? If I could say, God himself told you that I am a prophet, why do I have to get you to rely on my testimony? It's obvious an advantage to say, God is saying I'm his prophet. If you could get away with such a story, you don't think it would have been composed and told more than once? Why is it told once and once only, and the only unique story that mankind possesses? Mankind has no other unique story, only one. And the one unique story is that God appeared to the entire nation of Israel, and in the presence of every one of them proclaimed the reality of Moshe as a true prophet, and that the words he utters are the words that God will put into his mouth. And the Chumash says more, God offered to speak to all the people his law, but they couldn't. It was too much. It was a burning reality, God's presence, and who could stand up and tolerate the incredible pressure that it is to be in God's own presence? And so they turned to God and said, please, let Moshe be your representative, your messenger to us. We cannot bear to personally hear your words. And God said, okay, Moshe will be my prophet, and I will send my message to you through him. What other story, what other people can tell this and do this? You've got to explain it away. You've got to explain away the rather remarkable phenomena that in all the nations of the world, because mind you, none of them are going to lie to their children. Well, the Christian tells his child the truth. The Muslim tells his child the truth. They all tell the truth. And what is it that the Christian says to his child? The English Christian says to his child, my son, your father and grandfather and great-grandfather were pagans who painted themselves blue and danced around the trees. When there came a man from across the seas and bore the wonderful message that Jesus was the Son of God, and they believed him, and so they became Christians. Why did they believe him? They believed him. He doesn't tell them a story that they could prove it or show it or tell it. He tells them the truth. They tell their children the truth. This man persuaded them. And then he says, well, would they have been persuaded if it wasn't true? What do you think? Would they have been persuaded if it wasn't true? Are there a very few untruths that people have been persuaded to swallow? The Mohammedan tells his child the truth, that Muhammad came forth with the word of God, and he told all the people the word of God. And lo and behold, there were those who followed him. And lo and behold, there were those who did not accept this message. And lo and behold, the followers of Muhammad did smite with the sword of those who did not believe him. And he won the war. And he said to the conquered people, after having executed all of their priests and leaders, he said, will you accept that Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet, or won't you? If yes, wonderful. If not, off with the head. And I know how surprised you are that they all said, yes, Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet, and kept their heads intact. This is Mohammedan history. It is not my hyperbole. Ask them. And the proof of Muhammad's truth is that he won the war. But the Christians won war. And the Mongols won wars. And the Chinese won wars. Are they all true? A leap of faith. The Jew says no leap of faith. The Jew says we are Jews because we encountered God. We are Jews because the story we tell is impossible to be made up. It's got to be true, or it could not be told. That's why we are Jews. Search, think, examine. Who else can say that? To search, to think, to examine the roots of Christianity, Mohammedanism, Buddhism, any of them, is necessarily to reject. To search, examine, think of Judaism is to see truth. A uniqueness that those who would not accept must explain away. They've got to find some way to explain this incredible uniqueness. But it's a beginning. It's a beginning. All religions are man-made, with one exception at the most. This we all must agree. If there is a true religion, there is one religion given by God, all others given by man. If there's no true religion, all religions are made by man, right? Now, what is a man-made religion for sure going to represent? And the one thing you know it's going to do is it's going to be practical. That is to say, there is no way that a man-made religion will have the following law. Every 7 years, I want you to starve yourself and your family to death. A man-made religion just can't say that. I mean, it's just going to be too funny for words. No matter what leap of faith you make, they're not going to do that one. But the Jewish religion, our Chumash, says exactly that. Every 7 years, don't plant, don't grow, nothing. Sit at home and study and think and learn and discuss. No work. You hear that? But Lord, you know, we got children out there. They get hungry. What can we feed them? Don't worry. Don't you worry. I'll give you in advance enough food so that you'll have for all the years you're not working as well. Be stored up in advance so that you'll be able to sit and study that 7th year without work. Tell me something. Who says that? Who talks like that? Does a human being make up that kind of a law? Is it acceptable? Is it reasonable that a human being will tell a whole people, a whole nation, every 7th year, don't plow, sow, grow, sit home and study? Is it possible? Is it conceivable? But you know, there's another one over there. This is really a... God says to the Jews 3 times every year, 3 times a year, I want you to leave your homes and your possessions and come up to Jerusalem, to the Beis HaMikdash, to greet me, to greet God. Yeah. You know, we're surrounded, the Syrians in the north and the Jordanians in the east. Listen, God, if we do that when we come home, there won't be a thing left. They'll wipe us out. They'll destroy and rend that which they can't take with them. They'll take every movable thing. God, how can you ask us to abandon our homes and our possessions 3 times a year, surrounded as we are by vicious enemies who are waiting to destroy us? And God says, don't you worry. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. You go up to Jerusalem. When you get back, everything will be an apple pie order. Nobody will touch a thing. No fires will burn anything. Everything will be perfectly well preserved. Tell me, how many times did he think that would happen? Let's say you could persuade him to do it once. Will you ever get them to do it again? How do you make such a law? How do you tell such a law? Does a human being make up such a... Does any religion made by humans have that kind of an impossible to carry out law? But the Jews do. Who made it? A human being. Wrote that. Who wrote it? And how did they not discover how absurd this religion was after the first couple of years, when they saw that it was all nonsense? Must have been that they saw that it worked. How did it work? All the nations and their religions have prophets. And what do their prophets prophesy? The prophets prophesy that the conjunction of this and that will be that there'll be prosperity, and that don't do this on this day, or maybe exactly what happens. You know the oracles in Greece? Remember those oracles in Greece? They never made a mistake. Never. In all the years of Greek history, the oracles weren't wrong once. The only trouble was you never knew what they said until after it happened. After it happened, oh, that's what they meant. And you can very easily be right all the time when you can write it backwards. They never, ever knew what the oracle said until after the thing occurred, and then they said, that's what the oracle meant all along. Now we know what it meant, and sure enough it happened. But you didn't know in advance what would happen. But let me tell you something that the Chumash did say in advance. You will be thrown out of the land, and you will be dispersed among all the nations, and they will oppress you. Listen to this. But you will survive as a people, and you will come back to the land. Who gives that kind of prophecy? Who could think of this absurd statement? You'll be dispersed among all the nations of the world, but you'll preserve your identity. How do you preserve your identity when you're dispersed among all the nations of the world? How does that happen? How do you make such a prophecy? And I'll bring you back. And you'll be thrown out a second time. And you'll be dispersed once more among all the nations of the world to an even greater degree. But you will retain your identity. You will remain a Jewish people. And you will retain the Torah that I have taught you. You'll retain it. You won't lose it. Do you hear a prophecy written 3,500 years ago? Do you have that anyplace else? Does that happen? Who wrote this? A man wrote this. A man thought of this impossible thing, that the people will be dispersed to all the corners of the earth. oppressed, driven, and will survive and keep their Torah with them. Not once, but twice. You'll come back, and you'll rebuild, and then you get thrown out again. Who does that? Is that prophecy? Is that something divine? Was it less than divine? Not only to foretell it, but that it should happen? How could it be that a people dispersed among all the nations of the world, contemned and despised, oppressed and driven, without a language in common, without a land in common, without customs in common, without a race in common, different in their looks, the blondes and the brunettes and the blacks and the reds. All Jews, recognizing themselves as Jews, standing firm in their Jewishness, and their acceptance of their reality as being part of a people without anything in common. American Jews, and Dutch Jews, and African Jews, and Moroccan Jews, and Yemenite Jews, all Jews, looking different, speaking different, thinking different, and all Jews. How did that happen? That's not a unique miracle. Just to happen is an incredible miracle. But to have it foretold, thousands of years in advance, to be told that this is what's going to be, and that you'll come back. Listen to that joke. You'll come back. You know, I was speaking to a group of Jews, and we were speaking about Mashiach. And an elderly gentleman got up and he said to me, "Rabbi, come on. Do you really believe Mashiach is going to come?" That's what he said. I said to him, "You know something?" I said, "If you would have asked me this 50 years ago, I would have had a rough time. But tell me something. If 50 years ago, I would have told you that the Jews are coming back to Israel and they're going to be the government of the land, and it's going to be a Jewish country again. Wouldn't you have said, 'Come on, Rabbi, you don't believe that'? Isn't that the truth? Wouldn't you have said that? Wouldn't you have said that? But it happened. They did come back. They are there. Against the whole world, they are there. But he's right. How could you believe such nonsense? Other than the fact that it's there. But to tell it 2,000 years in advance, you believe that? Who wrote it? Who thought that? Somebody who was able to tell the unfolding of mankind's history, perhaps? Not divine. Not divine. A human being did that. Not divine. Laws that have transformed the face of humanity. Laws that have taken human beings to whom the ultimate greatness and the ultimate power, the ultimate worthiness, the ultimate hero was the warrior. The most efficient and capable killer. Is this not the common inheritance of all mankind? Is it not the acceptance of all human beings in every clime, in every country, in every place, that to the brave belongs the fair, or that of the powerful arm who knows how to wield the spear and the sword, that the legitimate ruler, the legitimate guide, the legitimate teacher of mankind, except among the Jews? Tell me, in all the long, torturous expression of human history, how much blood was shed, how much suffering occurred until little by little the Jew was able to teach mankind that it is not the warrior who is the hero, but the thinker, the doer, the creator, the compassionate one, the responsible one. Tell me, did not all of mankind know that if you didn't make it, so I can throw you a little bone here and there, but don't bother me? Who taught mankind the concept of responsibility for my fellow human beings? Who taught it to mankind? How long have they had it? When did they buy it? How much did we have to pay before we were able to get them to see and recognize that this is truly the mark of a human being? To share the responsibility, not just for ourselves and our own families, but for our brother human beings as well. Was it from anybody else but the Jew that mankind slowly, over the centuries, came to recognize and accept this truth, this enabler of human beings to be human and not animals? Is it not the mark of a Jew that this is today finally come to be the common acceptance of mankind? Tell me something. Of all the religions that mankind has produced, has there ever been one that produced two daughters? Two daughters that lifted mankind from the depths and troves of paganism, from the lowest of the low of human sacrifice and slaughter, of immorality and death-dealing, to the heights of accepting the reality of one God, the reality of a truth and a morality and an ethics that ought to bind one. What other religion has had offshoots that have so uplifted mankind? Does not the meaningful religions of man, are they not derivative of the one called Judaism? Today, we are, of course, multicultural, and we must recognize that the Far Eastern also have a religion, and the Africans have a religion. Come on, that's a religion. That's a religion giving in to the lowest kind of mankind. And if the Buddhists did, it was because it wasn't a religion but a wisdom. It was because they denied God, that they were able to have some semblance of humanity to them. All religions that have some sense of nobility, and don't let anybody talk to you that the noble red man had a religion. It was superstition and death-dealing and nothing else. The only religions that lift and ennoble are the derivatives and the children of Judaism. Is that not unique? Do all these uniquenesses not require that we deal with them, that we respond to them, that we work, how did this happen? If not divine, then what? If not from God, then how? Is it rational?